1996. A man is running along the beach when he sees the board game Jumanji in the sand. He brings it home to his son Alex Vreek, but he has no interest in it because it's a board game. He plays a video game, and Jumanji later transforms itself into a video game cartridge. Alex finds it and puts it in. As he starts to play, there is a flash of green light in his room. 20 years later, we meet Spencer Gilpin, a nerd who's scared of most of what's in the world outside. He meets his former best friend Anthony "Fridge" Johnson outside the Vreek house to hand Fridge an essay that he wrote. Fridge gets picked up by another girl, and Spencer is approached by Mr. Vreek, who became a recluse after Alex disappeared all those years ago. He frightens Spencer away from his home. At school, self-absorbed Bethany Walker is having a video chat with her friend during a quiz. Her teacher tells her to put the phone away, but when Bethany refuses, she is given detention. During gym class, Spencer notices as a shy girl, Martha Capley, refusing to join the other students in the sport. The gym teacher tries to get Martha to join, but she claims to not see a point to it and then inadvertently insults the teacher's profession, which lands her in detention. Spencer is then called to the principal's office after it's found out that Fridge was copying his essays. Although Spencer tries to defend Fridge, they both get detention. Principal Bentley makes the 4 students serve detention by removing staples out of magazines. They then find the Jumanji video game and pop it in the cartridge. Spencer and Fridge get ready to play, while Bethany and Martha join reluctantly. After they choose their characters, they suddenly get sucked into the game. Spencer finds himself turned into Dr. Smolder Bravestone, a muscular archaeologist. Fridge arrives into the game as Franklin Moose Finbar, an expert zoologist, but Fridge is upset that his avatar is a foot shorter than he normally is. Martha becomes Ruby Roundhouse, killer of men. Bethany is now Dr. Shelley Oberon, a cartographer that Bethany mistook for a woman because the description read, "curvy genius." The 4 freak out as they realize they are in the game. Almost immediately, a hippo emerges from the water and devours Bethany. She is brought back to the game, alive. The 4 are met by a non-playable character named Nigel, who knows all about the characters in the game, which leads into a backstory. A former ally turned nemesis of Dr. Bravestone, Russell Van Pelt, went hunting for a jewel called the Jaguar Eye at the top of a statue in the middle of the jungle. Van Pelt stole the jewel and took control over the animals in Jumanji. The objective of the players is to retrieve the jewel and save Jumanji in order to leave the game. After getting dropped off by Nigel, Spencer taps his pec and is shown a list of his skills, which include climbing, super strength, and speed, while having no weaknesses. Ruby is a skilled fighter, but her weakness is venom. Shelley has smarts in cartography and paleontology, while Moose is virtually useless, being armed with weapons that belong to Bravestone, and one of his weaknesses is cake. They also find a map that's missing a piece that will lead them to the Jaguar statue. Soon, the gang is found by villains on motorcycles. They chase them through the landscape until they reach a waterfall. The 4 jump off and swim to safety, but Martha got hit and she vanishes. She returns to the game, and they all realize that they were given 3 lives, indicated by bar tattoos on their wrists. Martha and Bethany are both down to 2. While traveling to their destination, Spencer and Fridge start to argue, with Fridge stating that he's been trying to distance himself from Spencer since 7th grade. Fridge pushes Spencer off a cliff out of spite, costing him a life. Spencer returns and smacks Fridge against a rock, but the girls get them to stop so they can proceed. The 4 end up in a market where they search for their missing map piece. Fridge unknowingly eats pound cake and explodes. Afterwards, a child comes up to them and guides them to what they need to find. They are taken to a hut with a container that holds a black mamba. Spencer grabs it, and Fridge defangs the snake. Bethany finds a small elephant totem and a note saying, "When you find me, start the climb." When they start to leave, they are found by Van Pelt and his minions. Spencer utilizes his strengths to smack the minions around and punch them sky high. The gang is then found by a 5th playable character, the pilot Jefferson Seaplane McDonough, who says his real name is Alex. He leads the gang away from the villains and takes them to safety after they take the jewel from Van Pelt. Alex takes the four to a treehouse that once belonged to Alan Parrish. He makes margaritas for the gang, and Fridge gets drunk. Alex mentions that he has been stuck in the game for months, and he hasn't been able to get to the transportation shed to get himself out. They realize they need to distract the guards. Bethany teaches Martha how to flirt so that she can go distract the guards while the others get to the shed. Meanwhile, Alex describes her using 90s slang, leading the others to realize he's Alex Vreek, and that he's been stuck in the game for 2 decades, and that everyone in town knows about his disappearance. This leads Alex to feel despaired. Martha fails to be flirty, but she remembers one of her skills is dance fighting. A song plays on a boom box, and she proceeds to kick the guards' butts. The gang then heads into the shed to get a helicopter, but Alex is hesitant as he is down to his last life and fears he will never get out. The others convince him to spring into action, and they take the helicopter out just as Van Pelt's goons show up. As the gang flies away, they are pursued by albino rhinos. The helicopter starts to lower and can't go higher. Spencer climbs up to fix it, but Fridge drops the jewel in the chaos. The rhinos circle the jewel to protect it. Alex flies back around as Spencer pushes Fridge out to create a distraction for the rhinos as they retrieve the jewel. Fridge gets trampled, but he is brought back to life. The gang lands the helicopter, but Alex gets stung by a mosquito. He starts to die, and Bethany performs CPR to revive him, which means she gives Alex one of her lives. Afterwards, Spencer expresses his feelings to Martha, and she reciprocates. They share an awkward first kiss. The gang makes it to the site of the jaguar statue, which is surrounded by jaguars protecting the place. Spencer gets mauled by one of the jaguars, leaving him with his last life. Spencer tells Fridge how scared he is, but Fridge encourages him to keep playing. Van Pelt and his goons arrive again, and the gang must utilize their combined skills and teamwork to fend off the villains. An elephant arrives, and Fridge climbs it by using the jewel. Martha then takes the jewel as Spencer climbs the statue. She becomes surrounded by snakes as Van Pelt approaches her. Martha deliberately steps on a snake to get bitten so that she may come back with the jewel in her hand. As she falls back into the game, she throws the jewel to Spencer, who places it back into the statue. The 5 players then cry out Jumanji, which lifts the curse on the land and causes Van Pelt to disintegrate. Nigel returns to congratulate the players for completing the game. He shakes their hands, and they all return to the real world. The main 4 are back in detention, but Alex isn't with them. They leave the school and walk away together, when they pass the Vreek house. It's no longer dilapidated, but now covered in Christmas decorations. Mr. Vreek steps out as he is greeted by his granddaughter. An adult Alex steps out of a car as he goes to talk to the kids. He tells them that the game sent him back to where he started in 1996, so he was able to live his life normally and start a family. He named his older child Bethany after the girl who saved his life. Back at school, Spencer and Fridge are friends again. Spencer finds Martha and kisses her. They then take the game and console behind the school and destroy them with a bowling ball. Ever since the adventure that changed their lives, Spencer, Fridge, Martha, and Bethany have gone off to college but have kept in touch through a group chat. They all plan to meet up again in Brantford over the holidays. However, Spencer has had a harder time adjusting to his new life in New York, struggling in school and barely getting by at his retail job. He has also broken up with Martha due to his insecurities. Spencer returns to his home with his mom and Grandpa Eddie. Spencer talks to Eddie about his friends and how things have been going for him. At night, Spencer reminisces about his time in Jumanji, and he goes into the basement where he takes out the console that he saved, along with the damaged game cartridge. The next morning, Fridge, Martha, and Bethany meet up at the restaurant Nora's for brunch like they planned. Meanwhile, Eddie is visited by his old friend Milo Walker, though Eddie is less than pleased to see him. After noticing that nobody has heard from Spencer, the 3 friends go to his house. Eddie recognizes Fridge from when he and Spencer were kids, and he lets them in. Fridge also knows Milo since Nora's used to be called Milo and Eddie's, as the two ran a restaurant together before Milo sold it to the new manager, which caused the rift between him and Eddie. The friends go looking for Spencer until they hear the drum beats from Jumanji. Terrified, they go to the basement where they see that Spencer put the console back together. They realize that he went back in the game and that they need to go get him. The game then starts to pull them in, but only Bethany is left behind. Martha finds herself in the jungle once again as her avatar Ruby Roundhouse. She finds Dr. Smolder Bravestone and thinks it's Spencer, but it's really Eddie. Milo has also joined the game as Mouse Finbar while Fridge has become Shelley Oberon, to his extreme dismay. Martha and Fridge must explain to Eddie and Milo that they are in a video game. Martha saves Eddie from getting eaten by a hippo, but as Fridge explains this to them, he gets eaten by a large snake, losing one of his lives. The group then sees a plane in the sky and they go after it. The group is picked up by Nigel Billingsley, who explains the newest Jumanji adventure. A sinister warlord named Jurgen the Brutal has stolen the Falcon Jewel, which provides growth to the land in Jumanji, but has now brought a drought in its absence. Jurgen is also the man who killed Dr. Bravestone's parents when he was a child. The group must retrieve the jewel and hold it to the sun to save Jumanji. However, Nigel notes that not everybody is going to make it out of the game this time. Nigel drops the group off in the desert for them to begin their quest. They all check out their skills, seeing that they have new skills, like linguistics for Mouse and nunchucks for Ruby, but Fridge is annoyed that Shelley has no good skills. Bravestone's new weakness is only described as Switchblade. They encounter an ostrich, and Milo uses Mouse's zoology knowledge to bring up info on the bird. Unfortunately, he is slow to explain that ostriches in herds are dangerous, as Eddie finds out when he gets chomped by one after trying to confront it. A herd then happens to appear and chases after the group, and they must board ATVs to drive out of there. Eddie drives the group off a cliff to avoid the ostriches, but they just barely make it to the other side of the cliff. The group makes it to the oasis where Nigel has instructed them to go to find a fruit called the Jumanji berry. They find Jurgen and his goons there with the jewel. A thief named Ming Fleetfoot tries to steal the key to the jewel, but Jurgen's goons catch her, and Jurgen throws an axe at her, causing her to die. The gang realizes this is Spencer in a new avatar. They catch him outside and he explains to them that he missed feeling the way he did before now that he felt lost away from home. Suddenly, the group is found by a woman who is a former flame of Bravestones. She helps clue them in on where to find the berry, but warns them about her husband, Switchblade. Fridge and Martha go off to find the berry while Eddie uses his new body to fight off dozens of bad guys. Martha runs across to the tree where the fruit is, but she falls into a glowing pool of water. As Fridge pulls her out, they then switch bodies. Fridge takes a moment to admire his ruby body and tries out her skills, but then falls into the pool and they switch bodies again. They return to find Eddie after beating everyone up, and they are discovered by Switchblade and his goons. They manage to get further away from the oasis with the berry in tow by riding camels that Milo managed to talk to, but Switchblade launches a rocket that strikes the whole group, taking away another life for everyone. Back in the real world, Bethany goes to the home of Alex Vreek to find a way to get back into Jumanji. The group continues moving ahead, but Eddie and Milo continue bickering, which leads Eddie to punch Milo so hard that he hits a rock and gets crushed, leading him to only having one more life. They continue walking until they come across a series of bridges, which all begin to revolve. Figuring out the timing, the group hops across the bridges, but they are soon pursued by wild mandrills. Martha gets thrown off a bridge by one of them, while the others manage to outrun them and hop to the other side. Eddie cuts the rope to drop the mandrills down below. Even as they reach the other side, the mandrills surround them, but they are scared off by the arrival of Alex returning as Seaplane McDonough, and Bethany as a horse named Cyclone. They bring the group warmer clothes as well. As they figure out their next plan, Eddie and Milo talk like friends again, and Milo reveals to Eddie that he showed up again after so long because he has an unspecified illness, and he doesn't have a lot of time left. The two finally reconcile, which Spencer sees and feels inspired by. Fridge then accidentally leans backwards and falls down a hill, but it helps lead the group to a river of the same water that made Fridge and Martha switch bodies. Spencer, Fridge, Bethany, Eddie, and Milo all jump in, which returns Spencer, Fridge, and Bethany into Bravestone, Mouse, and Shelly, while Eddie becomes Ming and Milo becomes Cyclone. Not long after, Eddie and Milo are taken by Jurgen's goons. The friends follow the henchmen to Jurgen's ice fortress on top of a mountain. Fridge and Bethany pretend to be the brothers Kababik, famed among Jurgen and his mercenaries. Spencer, Martha, and Alex try to find a way to get to the others. Spencer and Martha take the time to discuss their relationship, with Spencer admitting he thought Martha was better off without him based on her social media pics, but Martha says that her life is far from perfect. Alex tries to free Milo but loses 2 lives because of booby traps, but he manages to finally free Milo. When Jurgen sees Fridge and Bethany, he asks them about their sister who is due to marry him. Martha shows up and pretends to be her, but one of Jurgen's men informs them that the brothers Kababik are still on their way to meet him, outing Fridge and Bethany as imposters. Fridge pulls a boombox out of his backpack to play music for Martha to activate Ruby's dance fighting skills to fight off the henchmen. Jurgen attempts to make his getaway on his Zeppelin with the jewel, but Spencer goes after him and fights him inside the Zeppelin. Spencer uses the Jumanji berry to weaken Jurgen, just as the Zeppelin is shot and starts to come down. Spencer tackles Jurgen, sending the warlord plummeting to his death. Eddie rides on Milo's back, revealing that Cyclone can fly, and Spencer tosses Eddie the jewel to fly up and hold up to the sun. The group calls out Jumanji, and the land is once again restored to normal. Nigel meets up with the group again as they are ready to go home. However, Milo chooses to stay there as Cyclone, knowing he will at least have more time to live in there. Eddie says goodbye to his friend, and everyone returns to the real world in Spencer's basement. After returning, Mrs. Gilpin comes to find Spencer and Eddie bonding over a video game. Later on, Spencer and Eddie go to Nora's to meet with Fridge, Martha, and Bethany. Eddie sits down to talk to the Nora of Nora's, who happens to be Nora Shepherd. Eddie uses the Bravestone smoldering intensity that he learned, which convinces Nora to let him work alongside her as co-manager. Spencer then vows to stay more in touch with his friends, and they promise to remain closer than ever. Mrs. Gilpin brings a heater repairman to the basement. He sees the Jumanji console and becomes fascinated with it before touching it. Cut back to outside of Nora's where the group finds the herd of ostriches running through the streets.